I've been hearing a lot lately about Elizabeth Warren's medicare-for-all plan and how it doesn't raise taxes for American workers or middle-class workers, whatever. And that seemed kind of strange to me, so I started looking into it. And the truth is actually a lot more interesting and a lot more surprising than I anticipated. As I understand it, Warren has been facing what she considers a problem. Reporters have been going after her almost constantly, asking, are you going to raise taxes? Are you going to raise taxes? Are you going to raise taxes on the middle class? And she has bought into a fairly long-standing Democratic assumption, which has been pretty much ongoing since around the time of Ronald Reagan, that raising taxes is political suicide. So apparently what she felt was that she had to find a way to pay for her Medicare-for-all plan without raising taxes, or, to be more accurate, without admitting that she was raising the cost for the American worker. But in fact, she is. Here's how. When you get your health insurance through your employer pays generally a portion of the cost. So, for example, and that cost is considered part of your overall compensation. So, say you make, I don't know, $40,000 a year. Say your health insurance, your company pays $15,000 a year more for your health insurance. That means that your total compensation is actually $55,000. Your $40,000 and the $15,000 that the company is paying. That is part of what you get. Now, with Bernie Sanders' Medicare-for-all plan, once Medicare-for-all is implemented, that $15,000 or whatever that your company is paying goes to you. So, boom, you get $15,000 or whatever the cost of your health care plan is, $15,000 or more back per year. And not back, I mean, it just becomes part of your salary. Now, considering how expensive healthcare is, that's pretty damn good, particularly considering that you will also no longer have to pay co-pays, you will no longer have to pay premiums, you will no longer have to pay, everything will be covered, dental, vision, pharmacy, as well as medical. And presumably, we will not all be subject to the various collection activity of, medical collection activity, which has become a booming business in America. It's a huge underground business. I can't speak for anyone else, but actually I can, because I know a lot of people who had collection activity for medical bills, and I'm one of them. So, Elizabeth Warren's plan, on the other hand, doesn't mandate that your employer has to give that health insurance money to you. Instead, they have to pay it to the government to help fund Medicare-for-all. So the difference is, if Bernie's bill passes, you're making $40,000, it goes up to $55,000. You'll pay let's say you're going to pay $4,000 more in taxes. You still come out with $51,000, which puts you solidly ahead of where you are now. Under Elizabeth Warren's plan, you're still getting that $40,000. You are not getting that $15,000. That money is going to pay for Medicare-for-all. So you are, in that case, $11,000 poorer every year. That means that working Americans would be paying the cost primarily, shouldering the brunt of the cost of Warren's Medicare for All, they just wouldn't know it because they wouldn't realize that she was effectively stealing their, the money that should have gone back to them because it was part of their compensation. What's more, that is a terribly regressive tax. Because say you get a salary of $1 million a year. And say you get great health insurance. Your health insurance is $30,000. Your company pays $30,000 a year for your health insurance. That's really great. It would be considered a gold plan now or something. Okay. So under Warren's plan, you don't get that $30,000. But that's nothing to somebody who's getting $1 million a year, or virtually nothing. Then go to that person who's making $40,000 a year, and they've got maybe a $15,000, a year health insurance coverage from their employer. $15,000, even if you knock that down to $11,000, maybe due to increased taxes, $11,000 a year to somebody who makes $40,000 a year is huge. It's enormous, which makes this an incredibly regressive tax. It hurts the ones who can least afford it, and it basically doesn't do anything to harm. It does virtually nothing to harm the ones, or to have the ones who have been doing the best or are making the most money. It does nothing to get them to pay a fairer share of the bill. That is a problem. It's not the only problem. Another problem is that, essentially this is going to be a sort of a fossil tax, as I understand it. Warren would have your employer pay that $15,000 a year for you to the government for your health care. Okay. But once Medicare for All is in place, your company's not paying anything to you for your health insurance. So what happens? Do they have to just keep paying that amount forever because they paid it to you once? That's, among other things, grotesquely unfair because companies that are actually generous with their employers, with their employees, will be screwed because they'll have to keep paying, that sort of fossil tax. And companies that screw their employees and pay little or nothing, they'll be off the hook. That, any way you look at it, that's not good. And of course, then there's a whole issue of, that's something where companies will be encouraged. They will have every reason new companies will have, of course, no reason to want to offer employees health insurance because that won't exist anymore, maybe, but it'll also be meaningless with Medicare for All. So that's, and as companies go out of business, another thing that's going to happen almost certainly is companies will transfer that responsibility. They'll start up a new company that will be, or new subsidiary that will have the responsibility for those taxes, and then that company will go out of business, the little new subsidiary, and that tax liability will probably go with it. So, again, this is a huge, messy nightmare in the making. But beyond anything else, it is a massive backdoor screwing for working Americans. And the less money you make, the bigger the screw job. And this whole complex edifice has been set up just so Elizabeth Warren doesn't have to, say that she's raising taxes. The thing is, what kind of a person does that? What kind of a person screws the poor and the working class for her own political benefit? And, I will say also, she's screwing the poor and the working class. She is benefiting the wealthy. Particularly the cruel wealthy, employers who don't pay for their employees' health insurance. She has promised, we know that she's had meetings with the Democratic elite and has promised them that she's a team player. Unfortunately, looks like that time she was telling the truth.